Om Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Ayate Namaha. We are studying Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, second part, that is Sadhat Bhav, and today we are to read chapter 20, the worship of Shodashi, Shodashi Puja. Now, please do not confuse it with Shodashopachar Puja. Shodashopachar Puja is done to any deity with 16 materials. That is a totally different thing. Shodashi means Devi, Parvati, Lalita Sundari, Tripura Sundari, who is conceived as the young woman of 16 years age, just in the youth. That is most beautiful of all forms of the Devi. And the worship here is by Sri Ramakrishna to his wife Sarada Devi. She was 18 that time, conceiving her as the Tripura Sundari, or the Shodashi form of the goddess he worshipped her. And that will be the conclusion of his sadhana. We have seen that his sadhana has actually ended. After the sadhana, he has gone to his village and come back. He has done Islam Dharma sadhana. After that, he went to his village and come back. Then he has gone with a pilgrimage with Mathur Babu. Then we have seen some of his dear people have died. So there has been a gap in actual sadhana. He spent that time in getting the experience of the world in the spiritual sense. But the conclusion of sadhana is here. So, and as I told you the other day, it is as much about Sri Ramakrishna as about the holiest of the Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi. And so, Saradan Swamiji, he has told in the preface that this was not known before. First time it is being brought to the light. And he has began telling that let us go to Jairambati. Then we start the story. Mathur passed away, but the tenor of life in the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar went on as before. Days and months passed, and the year 1872 arrived. There happened a special event in the Master's life at that time. We must now go to the house of the Master's father-in-law in the village of Jairambati. if we want to understand the series of events ultimately leading to it. It means the event which is going to describe and what led to it. So we are going to Holy Mother's childhood. In Kamarpukur she was brought and she stayed with the master for some months. Afterwards she went back. Thakur came to Dakshineshwar and he forgot everything about his and he was plunged in sadhana and then went to pilgrimage and all. That is happening on this side. Now on that side, the Holy Mother was very young when she saw the master for the first time after the marriage. So first time after the marriage, her age is taken to be 14 years. That is the first time. When the master went with the Bhairavi Brahmani and Hridaya to Kamarpukur, his native village in 1867. So 5 years after that, this event is happening. The women relatives, as we mentioned before, had his wife brought there. That was in reality the first occasion when the Holy Mother met her husband. Anyone who has had the opportunity of comparing the young girls of towns like Calcutta with those of villages like Kamarpukur will have noticed that the bodies and minds of town-bred girls become developed at an earlier age than those of the villages. Now, that is the Western influence. In villages, girls of 14 and sometimes 15 or 16 do not have the physical signs of their youth fully developed. Their minds also, like their bodies, develop late. This is so perhaps because they have not to live in small places, cribbed and cabined like birds confined in cages, but live their lives in a natural way, breathing pure air and roaming freely about in their villages. Not much restrictions. Now in the villages they are very free. The mental attitude of the Holy Mother on seeing the Master for the first time. The Holy Mother therefore was very young when at the age of 14 she met her husband for the first time. Her powers of understanding the profound ideal and responsibility of married life were just at the point of unfolding themselves. At that time, the pure girl was delighted, experiencing an indescribable celestial bliss in having the divine company of the Master. Devoid of body consciousness and enjoying his selfless love and attention. So that was the experience during that visit. On many occasions, she used to describe that delight of hers to the women devotees of the Master, saying, "My heart remained incessantly so very full of an indescribable bliss that I have always felt since then." So permanent effect since then, as if a jar of bliss full to overflowing was installed in my heart. Now here it is said jar. I think it is Purna Ghat. Ghat is a pitcher better than jar. And it has a significance, this word Purna Ghat. What is the meaning? In the heart, Purna Ghata of joy is fixed permanently. Now you know that in spiritual terminology, the heart itself is called a Ghata. So, ऐसे घटी घटी राम है दुनिया देखे नहीं, कस्तूरी कुंडल बसे मृग ढूंढे वनमाही, ऐसे घटी घटी राम है दुनिया देखे नहीं. Also in Hindi, जो राम दशरथ का बेटा वही राम Ghata Ghata mein leta. So, Ghata in Indian languages means the heart itself. So, the heart itself, the experiencing organ, is filled with bliss, and from that day it is there. That means a permanent effect. Let us understand this a little philosophically. Thakur is all bliss because Brahman is Satchit Ananda. Holy Dhamar's heart is purest of the pure. So, this bliss reflects in that heart to the fullest extent. That is the philosophical significance. It shows that the love between them is not based upon any physical proximity, though she felt it when she saw him. So it means that the heart of Holy Mother was purer than purity, and so the Thakur's bliss reflected in her heart fully. And that reflection is not a physical reflection which goes away, it is an impression also. That reflection is also an impression, and that impression in the purest of the pure heart is permanent. That is the start, we may say, of the relationship. Other than that, we have seen that he taught her and all that. How the Holy Mother lived at Jairambati in that happy mood. So it has made her a permanent happiness in spite of things happening around her. So that is the effect of Thakur's company for those few days. When in a few months the master returned to Calcutta from Kamarpukur, the girl went to her father's home, feeling at heart that she was in possession of an infinite wealth of bliss. The feeling of that delight, we clearly understand, produced a change in all her conduct, speech, movement, work, etc. That means if the consciousness changes, the personality changes. Transformation of consciousness and transfiguration of personality. So the personality totally changes by that bliss, by those few days of Master's company, when she experienced absolute selfless love and whatever he taught her. So, produced a change in all her conduct, behavior with other people, speech, movement, work, etc. But it is doubtful whether people in general could notice it. That is another thing. Why people in general could not notice it? Because the change made her ingoing. The change did not make her jumping. That joy was not of exhilaration type. That joy pulled her inside. And so people could not notice what is happening in her. For it made her calm and not fickle. So the ordinary love would make the mind fickle in physical growth. But this is opposite. She became calm because of that real bliss. Thoughtful and not pert. That means pert. प्रगल्भा ना कुर्या. not showing herself, but remaining calm. Thoughtful, thoughtful, not showy. Selfless and not self-seeking. So the general transformation by getting the love of a husband is different, and this is totally different. That self-seeking it did not make. It made us selfless. Now what is this selfless? When the small I reduces or goes away, the heart expands, the personality expands, and one feels oneness with the whole world. So the change is called selfless. Thinking more of others, thinking more of others' welfare than one's own. One's own means to that small body-mind personality. By removing from her heart the feeling of all kinds of want. So, main thing, I don't want anything because I have got the infinite bliss inside. So, I do not require anything outside. That is the cause of all the transformation of character. Made her infinitely sympathetic to the sorrows and miseries of humanity. So, this Sthita Prajna or whatever it is not a stone. But his feeling, instead of remaining confined to that body, mind becomes universal. So, she could feel the sympathetic to the sorrows and miseries of humanity, converting her by degrees. So, slowly this is happening. The effect is such that the transformation has started. The process has started. Now, irrespective whether Sri Ramakrishna is with her or not, the process has started. And that by degrees converting her into an embodiment of compassion itself. So the final result will be embodiment of compassion. That means no thought of one's own. All the worries, chinta, thought, feeling of the joys and sorrows of others. On account of the influence of this joy, so wonderful transformation is showing. This is all what we call the philosophically the Jnana-nishtha changes. On account of the influence of this joy, even endless physical suffering now appear to her to be of no consequence. Oh. So when one is established in joy, the Gita 6th chapter will tell us, Bahuna dukkhena api na vichalyate. So outside sorrows, outside, physical, mental, but they do not touch the inside. That is the quality of that joy. That is the transformation taking place. Even endless physical suffering now appeared to her to be of no consequence, and she felt no pain at all if her care and affection for others were not returned. This is still wonderful. She is caring. Now see the world. Then we feel the contrast. If somebody cares for somebody due to attachment, somebody cares for somebody, attachment grows. And attachment always produces expectation. That is the very sign of attachment. And Holy Mother's love for others has no element of attachment. So no expectation. And because there is no want at all, so what she will expect? And the love If her care and affection for others were not returned, they do not love, they do not care, why should I care? That was not their attitude. They were in natural, God's love it is. Love is flowing, overflowing. Thus, content with the barest physical necessities for the body and lost in herself, in her Swarupa. The girl lived then in her father's house, only physically, her mind dwelling far away at Dakshineshwar, at the feet of the Master. So, mind has gone to God. Although a strong desire, that means the attraction is there. Although a strong desire arose now and again in her mind to go to him and see him. So, no want, but this attraction for God is increasing. The girl controlled it and was patient, thinking all the while that he, who graciously loved her so much at her first meeting with him, could never forget her and would surely call her to him at the proper time. So, waiting for the proper time, he will call me. Thus passed days one after another, and the girl, firm in her faith, awaited that auspicious day. The cause of the Holy Mother's mental anguish and her resolve to come to the Dakshineshwar. Now something external is happening. She is not losing herself, but an anguish about what has happened to him. This is a new thing. 4 long years passed one after another, but the strong current of hope and longing kept on flowing uniformly in the girl's mind. Her body, however, did not continue in the same state as her mind, but changing daily, it made her a young woman of 18 in 1872. Although the bliss due to her first meeting with her godlike husband kept her high above daily pain and pleasure, is there the possibility of pure, Saradan Swamiji is commenting now, is there the possibility of pure, unadulterated bliss in this world? She is living in the world. And their pure, unadulterated bliss does not continue for a long time. In their gossip, the men folk of the village made cutting remarks that her husband was mad, that he cast away even his wearing apparel and roamed about naked, repeating Hari Hari, etc. And the woman, that is, men folk said like that. And the women of her age alluded to her as a madman's wife and looked upon her as an object of pity or contempt. Pity or contempt. What is she? Husband is mad? Or, oh, husband is mad, so pity. She was much pained at heart by all this, not for herself, but said nothing. Because they won't understand. Absorbed in the thought of the master, she sometimes yielded to doubts. Is he then not the same person as I saw before? Has such a change as people say really come on him? If by the decree of providence it has actually happened, I must no longer be here. I must be by his side and serve. Not that I don't want to go to him if he is mad. So that made her anxious. If some change has happened in him and is able, I should go and serve it. She reflected a great deal and came to the conclusion that she should personally go to Dakshineshwar and have all her doubts cleared in the light of facts and do what she ought to. So she would go, find out, because she did not believe that change has come. He is the same as he was. So I will go and serve him. And if some change has come, I must stay there and serve him. So I will go there and then see him and then decide the future course of action. This is the most thoughtful attitude at the age of 18. the opportunity to carry out the resolve into practice. Sri Chaitanya was born on the full moon day of the month of Falgun, the day of the Dol Yatra. This holy, what we call in Bengal, is Dol Yatra. Dol Yatra means Krishna and Radha together swinging on the jhula. On that jhula swing, they are swinging. That is called Dol Yatra. You know the month of Falgun, there the romantic feeling grows, and so people celebrate Dol Yatra. It is given there a day of festivity in which Sri Krishna is swung in a swing. Many people from the farthest end of Bengal come every year to Calcutta to bathe on that occasion in the holy waters of the Ganga. So it is called Dol Yatra, and the auspicious thing to do on that day is to take bath in Ganges. A few women distantly related to the Holy Mother had decided that they should go there on that occasion that year. She went to them and expressed her desire to go for a bath in the Ganga. Women, she won't say directly what she wants, but this is what she wants, and the occasion has come. Thinking that it was not reasonable to take her with them without her father's permission, the ladies asked her father Ramachandra Mukhopadhyay about it. As soon as the intelligent father heard it, he understood why his daughter wanted to go to Calcutta. He understood. Father of Sarada Devi, not like other people, and made all arrangements to take her himself there. Because if she has to go to the son-in-law, it is the father's duty to take her himself. That is what he thought, not with other ladies only. Thanks to the railways, the distance between Calcutta and far off Kashi or Vrindavan has now vanished. But not having that blessing in those days, Kamarpukur, the birthplace of the Master, and Jarambati, the birthplace of the Holy Mother, lay as far as ever from Calcutta. Now it is within 3 hours one can go to Kamarpukur in Jarambati. The Holy Mother started on foot with her father for a bath in the Ganga. She had fever on the way. This is so even now, that means Saradananda's time. Let alone those times. In those days, the railway lines had not yet been laid either via Vishnupur or via Tarakeshwar. So there are two routes, Vishnupur, then Jarambati, or Tarakeshwar, then Kamarpukur, Jarambati. Nor was Ghatal connected with Calcutta by steamer. Ghatal is near Jarambati, so Calcutta to Ghatal by steamer and then remaining distance. So these were not there. Because people in Saradananda Swami's time see this, so they have to imagine that state, so it is correct. Therefore, the people of those villages had no other course than to travel by palanquin or on foot. And all people except the rich, such as zamindars and others, used to have recourse to the latter, go on foot. So, accompanied by his daughter and other companions, Ramchandra started on the long journey on foot. All of them walked with delight for the first 2 or 3 days. So much time it takes, not 3 hours. No. They saw one paddy field after another and ponds full of lotuses and enjoyed the cool shades of trees like the people and the banyan. But that delight did not continue up to the destination. Unaccustomed to the fatigue of journeys, Ramachandra's daughter had a severe attack of fever on the way, which made the father very anxious. Knowing it impossible to proceed further when his daughter was in that condition, he halted at an inn and stayed there on the way. A wonderful vision the Holy Mother had during her illness, because Up till now, we are seeing the outside only, the mind only. But she and Thakur are nothing but incarnations of Kali. So, it had to reveal to herself during her sickness and anxiety, despondency, shall I be able to go there or not? Such being the mind, see what happened. What a terrible anguish the Holy Mother felt in her heart on account of the illness on the way cannot be described. But she had a wonderful vision which consoled her. She sometimes used to describe this vision in the following way to her woman devotees. I lost all consciousness on account of high temperature and was lying, unable even to look to the propriety of my dress, when I saw a girl come and sit beside me. The girl was black in complexion, but I never had seen such beauty before. She sat by me and began to pass her hand over my head and body. Her hand was so soft and cool that the heat and the burning sensation of my body began to subside. I asked her affectionately, "May I know where you come from?" The girl said, "I come from Dakshineshwar." Astonished to hear it, I said, "From Dakshineshwar?" I thought of going there to see him and serve him, the master, but as I have got this fever on my way, I shall not have the good fortune of fulfilling that desire. Why not? Said the girl. You will surely go to Dakshineshwar. Getting well, you will go there and see him. It is for you that I have detained him there. So, it is for Thakur as much as it is for the Holy Mother. Her own play, her own glory will start when she reaches Dakshineshwar in presence of Thakur. I said, "Is that so? Pray tell me, are you related to us? Who else will think like that?" "I am your sister," said she. I said, "Indeed, that is why you have come." I had this conversation with her when I fell asleep. So, in real life, she did not have sisters. So she said, "Really?" And then fell asleep. The Holy Mother reached Dakshineshwar at night with fever on the master's behavior. Ramchandra rose in the morning to see that his daughter's fever had subsided. That is what the Kali the mother did. He thought it better to continue the journey slowly with her instead of helplessly waiting on the way. Encouraged by the vision of the previous night, the Holy Mother approved his idea eagerly. Scarcely had they walked a little eagerly because she knew she will be able to reach and serve him. Scarcely had they walked a little distance when a palanquin became available. So normally they were poor, they would not take a palanquin, but due to fever and by providence palanquin became available. She had fever again, but as it was not severe as on the previous night, she did not lose control over herself. Neither did she mention it to anybody. They gradually reached the journey's end, and the Holy Mother came to Master at Dakshineshwar at 9 p.m. The Master was somewhat worried to see her thus suffering from fever. He arranged for a separate bed in his own room, lest fever should increase on account of cold, and said with a sigh, "You have come at long last." He did not bring her collar, but when she comes, she said, "You have come at long last." And alas, my Mathur is no more. Providence wanted it that way. Who will take care of you? Because he was confident about Mathur. But then another devotee shot up, Shambhu Malik, and he took care of mother like anything. The master kept her in his own room for 3 or 4 days and personally supervised everything. He then made arrangements for her to live with his mother in the Nawbat Khana, the music room, staying there, but she would come and sleep with Thakur, remember. During 4 or 5 days, she stayed in master's room herself. And there Thakur took care of her. And she recovered. Then Thakur stayed her, uh, sent her to Nabat room, and with the idea that Thakur will be there, she will be there near the mother-in-law, and she would come at night and sleep with him. The Holy Mother lived there overflowing with joy on account of that behavior of the Master. So that behavior pleased her immensely. Thus were removed the worries caused by rumors. The dust of doubts raised by rumors which was about to cloud her faith were now scattered in all directions and vanished. When the loving care and anxiety of the Master for her confirmed her in her faith that he was just his former self, and that it was only the worldly minded with no power of discrimination that had spread those false rumors. They could not understand, so they are talking like that. Her God was the same God. Thus mused the Holy Mother, and far from having forgotten her, was as gracious to her as before. That is her thought. Therefore, she decided in no time what she should do. She lived in the Nabat with a joyful heart and engaged herself in the service of her Lord and his mother, both. Her father, happy in the happiness of his daughter, stayed there for a few days and returned home joyfully. Now that Dol Yatra and taking bath and all gone, that was only the nimitta. The master's tasting of his knowledge of Brahman, his training of his wife. Two things. We have told the reader about the series of thoughts that arose in the master's mind on the arrival of the Holy Mother at Kamarpukur when he was staying there in 1867. Remembering the words of Totapuri regarding the thorough knowledge of Brahman, he was then ready to do his duty by his wife and to test the knowledge attained through his sadhana. But he had to come back to Calcutta just when he had begun to accomplish those two purposes. His abode was in Calcutta. So when he recovered, he came back. Having her beside him now, he applied his mind again to those two things. So continuation of that, no break. Only time break is there, but no break in the continuity. The reason why the master did not do this before. So he asked, if he is so anxious and all that, why did not call her? Why then it may be asked, did he not bring his wife to Dakshineshwar before? Saradananda Swamiji, through analysis, has explained the divinity of Thakur with no absolutely uncertain, no uncertainty in his terms about Thakur or about the Holy Mother. And test his knowledge. It may be said in reply that an ordinary man no doubt would have done so, but the master did not belong to the class of ordinary human being, and therefore his conduct was different. So that aggressive approach is not there. Faith in divine is more. So when the time comes, she will come. She thinks when the time will come, he will call. But due to those rumors, she became anxious to come and came herself. But the master did not, those who are accustomed to do everything depending entirely on God at all times, do not previously draw up a plan of what they want to do. Planned work is not for the man of knowledge. We have to do everything planning. Sister Nivedita once said to Swami Vivekananda, now we have to plan our work. He says that plan is your Western idea. I do not plan anything. So in them, God is working, spontaneity is the result, no plan. Instead of depending like us on the limited little intellect, they await help and gain from the all-pervading intellect of the Divine Lord in order to do good either to themselves or to others. Do good to themselves means more sadhana if necessary, and to others. They therefore are strongly averse to courting a test of their own accord. I want to get tested. This also is an ego. But when the occasion comes, he gets tested. They therefore are strongly averse. They go on behaving continually in full accord with the universal will, and if the time for such a test comes up itself, they proceed forward gladly to submit to it. So not averse nor specially wanting, that is the sameness of the mind of the Siddha Prajna. The master did not go forward of himself to test the depth of his own divine knowledge, but when he saw that his wife had come to him at Kamarpukur and that if he was to perform his duty by her, he must stand that test, then alone was he ready to submit. Again, when by the will of God that opportunity was gone and he had to come to Calcutta and live away from his wife, he did not voluntarily try to bring about the same opportunity once again. Very different from man of the world. Totally different, opposite. Until she herself came, he did not make the slightest effort to bring the Holy Mother to Dakshineshwar. We can thus find, even by means of our ordinary intellect, so this is through human intellect we have found a congruity running through all the phases of the master's behavior towards her. Besides, he knew, it may be heard, with his yogic vision that such was the will of God. Another way of putting it is that in his transcendental vision he know that now it is the will of God. It was not there because he had to remain single and do all his sadhanas. Now it is the time for that. The master's method of teaching, how he behaved with the Holy Mother at that time. Method of teaching. Now when the master saw that the time to submit to the test in the matter of discharging his duties to his wife, so he does not forget that he is a married man. He is a sannyasi and householder in one. He is the ideal sannyasi and the ideal householder. He is God. He is not like us. So, for the householder there is duty towards his wife. And for that he is ready. As sannyasi, he has no duty. He was perfectly ready to do so. Whenever an opportunity arose, he used to teach the Holy Mother everything about the aim and duties of human life. So everything direct to the final aim of life. But for that sake, how to live in the world is also necessary. Deriving from that. It is so aim and duties of human life. It is said that during this time he told the Holy Mother, just as Uncle Moon is the uncle of all children, so God is everybody's own. So he is starting ab initio. She has changed. She has grown spiritually. But the actual conscious growth has to start from the beginning. So he is teaching like this. Just as Uncle Moon is the uncle of all children, so God is everybody's own. Everyone has the privilege of calling on him. I think the Western mind or Western influenced mind also knows this, that Moon is called in India as Mama, the mother's brother, uncle. If you call on him, you will also see him, God. The master's teaching did not end with merely giving instruction to the disciple. He would keep the disciple with him, make him in all respects his own by love. Through love and affection, and then give him instructions. Even at that, the master would not stop. He would keep a keen eye on how far the disciple carried them into practice. And if the disciple acted by mistake contrary to his instructions, he would correct him by pointing it out to him. He, it is clear, now adopted the same method with respect to the Holy Mother also. He did not correct her much, though that is his method. How far he made her his own through love from the very first day is clear from the fact that he asked her to live in his own room as soon as she came, and that when she had recovered from illness, he gave her permission to share his own bed every night. We are told the reader elsewhere in the Guru Bhav, Purva, the 4th chapter, a full discussion of that relationship is given, except this fact which has to be mentioned now. We have told the reader elsewhere, we shall not repeat it here. We shall say a word or two not mentioned there. How the Master looked upon the Holy Mother. So these things have not come. Now the relation or consciousness about that relation will be described. One day during this period, while she was massaging the Master's feet, so she is doing personal service like anything. The Holy Mother asked him, "How do you look on me?" Very intelligent. She wanted to know this. Out came the reply, "The mother who is in the temple, the mother who has given birth to this body is now living in a Nabad. The same mother is now massaging my feet." So, out of his Tantra sadhana, he has realized that any female figure is nothing but mother, universal. And maybe his wife. So he loves her, affectionate to her. He has the responsibility, but with the consciousness that it is nothing but a form of mother. Relation, husband-wife, duty to teach her, knowledge that she is the divine mother. And spontaneously replied. He did not have to make up that reply. Truly, I always look upon you as a form of the blissful divine mother, Ananda Mahima. The master tested his self-control. From the other side now. On another occasion, seeing the Holy Mother asleep by his side, the master addressed his own mind and started discriminating. This is, O mind, a female body. People look upon it as an object of great enjoyment, a thing highly prized, and they die for enjoying it. But if one goes for it, one has to remain confined in the body and cannot realize God, who is existence, knowledge, bliss. Do not, O mind, harbor one thought within a contrary attitude without. Say in truth whether you want to have it or God. If you want it, it is here before you, have it. He discriminated thus, but scarcely had he entertained in his mind the idea of touching the person of the Holy Mother when his mind shrank, recoiled rather, and at once lost itself so deeply in samadhi. So that is how the Tantra sadhana had taught him. Living within objects of temptation, detached. Now he has already reached that extreme, but he is testing his mind. And so it is seen that the mind recoiled and went into absolute oneness. That it did not regain its normal consciousness that night. He had to be brought back with great effort to normal consciousness the next morning by the repeated utterance of the name of God in his ear. That was the standard method. Because when the ears hear the same thing which is appearing inside, then they are ready to come out, not otherwise. No incarnation of God behaved with his wife as the master did. Its result. So this is something required in this age. So master behaved like that. It has never happened before. A unique thing for teaching the world in the modern times. What we have heard from the master speaks about the divine sport of himself and the Holy Mother at that time, when he was in the full bloom of his youth and she in her new bloom, is not known to be true of any other incarnation of God in the spiritual history of the world. He has himself described that to set up an ideal in this world. Charmed to hear these things, the human heart comes naturally to believe in the divine nature of the couple and feels compelled to have heartfelt love and reverence for them, both couple. The master, free from body consciousness, passed whole nights in ecstasy at that time. And even when he used to come down to the plane of normal consciousness at the end of his ecstasy, his mind dwelt in such an exalted state that body consciousness like that of ordinary people never arose in it even for a moment. What the master said about the extraordinary nature of the Holy Mother. So that is the reason. They are the two forms of the same reality. Suddenly some thought came to me. I hope Professor Ram Narayan is listening to this lecture. When I was in Chennai, I was describing another incident from the master's life, and he was shocked a little. And he asked me that he has heard that Thakur never touched the Holy Mother. I said that is touching with a different consciousness. Physically, why he would not touch her? He has pushed her when that was the incident. He went to Kali temple and came back, and mother was sweeping in his room, her back to the door, and he came and pushed her and said, "Why I am intoxicated?" That was the incident. Thus months rolled on, and more than a year passed away. Still, the self-control of the wonderful master and of his equally wonderful holy spouse did not give way, because it is not a control, it is the consciousness. Not even for a moment by way of inadvertence, because all this is will, conscious effort, then this advertence, inadvertence comes. But when the consciousness is different, there is no place for that. So we look upon it like this. By way of inadvertence, did their minds consider physical union to be pleasing and desirable? Remembering what happened at that time, the Master said to us now and again, had she, the Holy Mother, not been so pure, and had she, losing herself, assailed me, who knows if my self-control would not have broken down? That is only to eulogize Holy Mother. And body consciousness arisen. I had importunately asked the Divine Mother after my marriage to keep her mind absolutely free from lust. Having lived with her at that time, I knew that the Divine Mother had really heard and granted that prayer. So she was also divine. The Master's resolve after he successfully stood the test. So that Shodashi Puja introduction is up till now we are read. When even at the end of a year, body consciousness never arose in him for a moment, and he could not look upon or think of the Holy Mother as any other than a part of the Universal Mother or as Brahman. Now, part of the Mother or Brahman. That means in the Sagun aspect there is part and whole. In the Nirgun aspect there is no part and whole. The master became convinced that the Divine Mother had made him successfully stand the test, and by her grace, that is for a real sannyasi according to Totapuri. His mind was now established in the divine state in an easy and natural way. That means he does not have to contrive for it. It is easy, natural. He now felt in his heart of hearts that his sadhana, by the grace of the mother, had been perfectly completed. What more in sadhana? Seeing God and nothing but God in one's own wife is taken to be the highest point of sadhana, not even the Vedantic Nirvikalpa Samadhi. He now felt in his heart of heart that his sadhana, by the grace of the mother, had been perfectly completed, and that his mind was so much absorbed in her lotus feet that there was no possibility of any desire, contrary to her will arising in it, knowingly or unknowingly. Ordained by the Divine Mother, an extraordinary desire arose in his heart now, which he carried into practice without the slightest hesitation. We shall now tell the reader in a connected way what we heard about it now and then from the Master and the Holy Mother. To connect, he will tell from both sides. The preparations for the worship of Shodashi. A little more than half of the month of Jeshta, Bengal year 1280 AD, May 25, 1873 had elapsed. It was the new moon day and holy occasion for the worship of the Palaharini Kali Devi. Palaharini, Kali Puja, Palaharini, not Palaharini. The karma phala she takes away, not that she eats fruit. It is not Palaharini, it is Palaharini. You can't understand this in the English spelling. It was the day of a special festival at the Dakshineshwar temple. The master had made special preparations on that day with a view to worshipping the mother of the universe. These preparations, however, had not been made in the temple, but privately in his own room at his desire. A wooden seat painted with alimpana, the pigment of rice powder, for the Devi to sit on at the time of worship had been placed to the right of the worshipper. The sun had set. The new moon night, veiled in deep darkness, had alighted on the earth. Hriday, the master's nephew, had to perform a special worship of the Devi in the temple. He had therefore helped as much as possible in the preparation of the master worship and had gone away to the temple. Having finished the nocturnal service and worship of Radha Govinda, the Radha Govinda worship gets earlier. Vishnu sleeps earlier. The first priest Dinu came to help the master in the preparations. It was 9 p.m. So Radha Govinda is over by 9 p.m. When all the preparations for the mystery worship of the Devi, because nobody knew what he wanted to do, were completed. In the meantime, the master had sent word to the Holy Mother to be present during the worship. She came to the room and the master started the worship. The master sprinkled consecrated water on the Holy Mother and worshipped her. The articles of worship were purified, the mantras and all the rites preliminary to the worship were finished. The master beckoned to the Holy Mother to sit on the worship seat decorated with alimpana. While witnessing the worship, the preliminaries of the worship, the Holy Mother had already entered into a divine semi-conscious state. Not clearly conscious, therefore, of what she was doing, she, like one charmed with mantras, sat facing north to the right of the master, who was seated with his face to the east. Normal worship seats. According to scriptural injunctions, the master sprinkled Holy Mother repeatedly the water purified by mantras from the pitcher placed before him. The water itself is purified and then sprinkled. He then uttered the mantra in her hearing and then recited the prayer. O lady, O Mother Tripura Sundari. Tripura Sundari, that means most beautiful in all the three worlds. Who are the controller of all powers? Open the door to perfection. Purify her, the Holy Mother's body and mind. Manifest thyself in her and be beneficent. He went into Samadhi at the end of the worship. He offered japa, worship, etc. at the feet of the Devi. We shall complete it. Afterwards, the master performed the nyasa of the mantras in the Holy Mother's person. So, Anganyas, Karanyas for the pujari is done. In the pujita thing, in the Devi's image, normally these are done. So, in Holy Mother, he did this. Holy Mother's person, according to the injunction of the Shastra, and worshipped her with the 16 articles. So, that is Gauna, not because of that Shodashi, I already told you. But the full worship is done with 16 articles. As the Devi herself, he then offered food and put a part of it to her mouth with his own hand. The Holy Mother had lost normal consciousness and went into Samadhi. The master too, uttering mantras in the semi-conscious state, entered into complete Samadhi. So first Holy Mother, then Thakur. The worshipper in Samadhi became perfectly identified and united with the Devi in Samadhi. That is the meaning of Samadhi. He has entered Nirgun Brahma, she has entered Nirgun Brahma. There they have become united. That is nothing to do with the external union, known as a long time past. The second quarter of the night had long passed. The master, happy only in the self, now showed a little sign of regaining normal consciousness. Returning to the semi-conscious state again, he offered himself to the Devi. He offered himself to the Devi. He now gave away forever. At the lotus feet of the Devi, he is all. The result of his sadhana, his rosary by which he was doing sadhana, his rosary, etc., along with his self, and saluted her uttering the mantra that is normally done to the image, and Thakur did it to the living mother. O thou auspiciousness of all auspicious things, Sarva Mangala Mangalya, if you remember. O doer of all actions, O refuge, O three-eyed one, O thou fair complexioned spouse of Shiva, O Narayani, I bow down to thee, I bow down to thee. Remember, Sarvamangala Mangalya Shive Sarvartha Sadhike, Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. The worship was at an end. The master's sadhana reached its culmination with the worship of the ruler of the universe, the Divine Mother in the body of a woman, the embodiment of spiritual knowledge itself. The God-man attained perfection in all respect. You understand God-man? God as man. As man, he attained perfection. As the Holy Mother sleep was disturbed on account of the master's constant samadhi, she went to bed elsewhere. Later, she went back to Kamarpukur. So, just opposite of human. The Holy Mother stayed with the master for about 5 months after the worship of Shodashi. She now, as before, engaged herself in the service of the master and the master's mother, spent the daytime in the Nabat, and shared the same bed with the master at night. The master had continued Bhav Samadhi night. Bhav Samadhi in the night. Oh, no. The master had continued Bhav Samadhi night and day. Sometimes his mind suddenly merged in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi in such a way that signs of death were manifested in his body. Apprehensive of the uncertainty of the time when such a state might come on him, the Holy Mother could have no sleep at night. When on one occasion the master did not come down to normal consciousness from samadhi for a long time, she was alarmed and, not knowing what she should do, disturbed the sleep of Hriday and others. His samadhi came to an end when Hriday came and uttered the names of God in his ears for a pretty long time. Coming to know of all this after his samadhi broke, and also of the disturbance of the Holy Mother's sleep every night, the master made arrangements for her taking her bed with his mother at Navat. She lived thus for about a year and 4 months with the master at Dakshineshwar and returned to Kamarpukur probably sometime in October 1873. Om Sarvadharma Sadhaka Sarvadharma Sarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.